Today I'm going to do an initial review of these Amazon type Waterstones from this company. I don't know how to say this. I'm gonna call it THLEITE, but I'll probably forget that that's how I decided to pronounce it. I learned about these stones from diamond cut steel. There's several things that interest me about these stones, which I will get into in further detail. But the main interest is I have had many experiences with Amazon type Waterstones, and I have several reviews of them on my channel. When I saw diamond cut steel talking about these stones, I assumed they would be like the other Amazon stones I have tried. They look very similar, their grits are the same, so on. However, these claim to be splash and go stones, soak free, splash and go. So that is of great interest to me. I paid $60 for this set. I'll show you what this set includes. These claim to be splash and go stones. They even say, they have them stamped right on here, splash and go, do not soak. The reason this is relevant is because in my experience, splash and go stones are quite expensive. So to get these for $60 is very relevant. Many sets of Amazon type stones come with a stone flattener that looks exactly like this. If you just wanted to buy one of these on Amazon, they're usually about $10 to $13. So I'm gonna assume this is $10. So here's a stone holder. I have one of these that looks very similar, but you can buy these separately on Amazon, and they're usually $17 to $20. If I could find one of these for $17 on Amazon, I would be very happy with it. And that's $25 to $30 just for these items here, which makes it so these stones are like $35. So you're basically paying $35 for this set of splash and go stones. So because they include this, I don't think these rubber feet are necessary. So when you see me using these, I'm not gonna have these on there. These stones are a little tiny bit rough looking just in their appearance because they're so chalky looking. In my experience, other splash and go stones that I have received do not look this chalky. I think that's just some residual powdery stuff, probably from something in the manufacturing process. I don't know. But if that is an issue, I'll let you know. The other thing I notice about these stones is they definitely feel different than the Amazon soaking stones that I've used. They feel much smoother. This 8,000 grit feels very smooth. This 400 grit feels quite coarse. So I assume these are going to be at least more appropriately graded. My experience with Amazon soaking stones is they are very not accurately graded. They all feel like they're 1,000 grit or less, even though they say 3,000, 8,000. So that's something I'm going to comment on as I use them. The other thing I notice about these stones is the size. They are quite small. They look to be just about ½ an inch or maybe slightly thicker. But let me do some quick comparisons. So I mentioned these stones cost me $60 for the whole set. In my experience, one of the most economical types of splash and go stones is Shapton Koramaku line. They are these colorful ones. I've done a review on this stone a couple times. I have a couple videos on this stone. This 1,000 grit stone costs between $52 and $58 for this stone alone, which seems like a lot of money, and it is. However, it's much larger. They're pretty close in thickness, but you get about another inch at the top. So this stone is considerably bigger, but it also costs as much almost as the whole set that I got here. So that's very relevant. If you want to get into Waterstone sharpening, or you want to try splash and go stones and you've never done it, this is the cheapest way to do it. I have never found any stones that are even close to this cost. These are very, very, very inexpensive. I have here a Nanowatt Advance Super Stone. These are generally considered quite good. These are pretty good quality stones. I just have this here. This is a combo stone, so you get 2 grits for one, or 2 grits on one stone. And it's slightly thicker than these. and again, 3/4 of an inch or an inch longer. So you get more stone here overall, but again, this is 2 stones. So if I put these together, that would be bigger, right? So these Nanawa Advanced Super Stones generally cost $55 to $65. I'm going to bring these up again because the sharpening experience on these is quite good, but the load up is quite bad. I tried to clean this load up out of this stone and I couldn't, this stuck around. So I'm gonna use this for reference because I'm curious how much these stones are gonna load up. So cost, very, very good on these stones. Is it worth it? That's what I'm here to find out. Here's kind of my sharpening setup. I use this tray. This is a bamboo base that came with my regular Amazon stones. I use it in there upside down just because it gives me a tiny bit more clearance. This is the stone holder I always use. As you can see, it looks very similar to this one. They look quite similar in terms of size. Today, I'll use the one that these stones came with, and we'll see how it works. So this is a knife I'm going to be sharpening today. This is Duratech. I use this knife all the time. These knives are really cheap, so I don't mind using them for demonstrations. I don't want to tear up and chew up and waste away a good knife. So I'm just going to take this edge off. This is a strop I use all the time. I just actually bought an 800 grit plate for the Work Sharp Precision regular, non-professional, and the ceramic for it. So I bought it for the original Precision Work Sharp, and they have sticky back. So I just bought those and stuck them to the side of my strop. So I have an 800 grit diamond here, and whatever the Work Sharp ceramic is, probably 1000 grit. We'll just gently remove this edge real quick. I don't need this thing to be super dull. Do a couple chunks on him like that. Dull the heck out of my beautiful edge. So now I have stuff going all over in every direction. I have, you know, you do that and it smashes out your edge. So you have burrs and rolls and everything going all over the place. The majority of it's on this side, but some of it is on the side. It says just to give this a quick dunk or a splash or a spray, so that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna give it a quick rub, just see if I can get some of this stuff off there, because it's a little, got some kind of powder on it, like chalky feeling powder. I'm gonna sharpen on the other side. 1, because it'll be easier for you guys to see what's going on. 2, that's just what I always do. I always keep the logo going if I can. So just from that dunk, this thing is not just sucking in water immediately, which is good. Tells me this thing really is more of a splash and go. Splash and go stones should hold the water on the surface without sucking much of it in. So I'm just gonna do a couple quick alternating swipes to get those burrs and flats and smashes off of this thing. I'm not an expert sharpener, I'm not a professional sharpener, but I have been using Waterstones for a while. I'm not perfect at it, but I'm not the worst. So already, just with those initial passes, the stone has a kind of a hard, the stone feels quite hard. Yeah, it felt like hard rubber kind of with some grit in it. And now that I think I'm getting the first surface layer off, it's starting to feel more gritty and more gritty. So we'll just start going here and see if this thing kind of gets into its groove. So down here on the bottom of the stone feels really slippery and not gritty at all. So it could be that the stone It's pretty common for stones to have some kind of a film over them. So my suggestion is you give the stone a quick lapping when you start out. I did not do that with this one. I just wanted to see what it was going to do. But this area here feels kind of slippery. So it may just need to be broken in a little bit. The rest of the stone feels adequately fine. It does feel like it has some grit, but it has a kind of a smooth feel to it. We do have a little bit of swarf, indicating the thing is cutting. It's not cutting quite as fast as I would have expected, but again, it's new, so I think it has some kind of film on it, which is pretty common. The stone had some lint on it, so I rinsed it and flipped it around. Stone has a very pleasurable feel. Yeah, it's got some sliding back here that is a little weird. Also, right there, dug up a tiny little clump of the stone. That happens. If you either go in too deep, you'll get some stone. I think I just had some residual corner sticking up, and that's what that was about. And I'm not using really any pressure. So if there's a pressure scale, 1 is the least amount of pressure possible to keep the knife on the stone, and 5 is pushing as hard as you can. I would say my pressure is about a 2. 2 to 3, no more than a 3 on any stroke yet. So again, I'm just alternating sides to kind of try to keep things going even. This stone has kind of a soft but gritty feel to it. It doesn't feel overly scratchy. Burr for sure on that side. So I'm just going to keep alternating a little bit, make sure everything's even on my knife. Definitely, that was weird, sorry. I was just rocking like that, trying to find my angle. Probably looked funny to you guys. Let's see if I can get my tip going here. So the reason I bring up the pressure thing is because if you watch me sharpen, I will probably get my results slower than lots of other people. Because I don't like using a lot of pressure. It's just me, it's just my personal preference. So I'm just pointing that out so you know. Oh, you got it. We got to burr the whole way. Go to this side. This stone is very enjoyable to use. The feel is kind of awesome. It feels like really, really hard, gritty rubber. I kind of like that feel. So it has a soft feel. That's how I describe the rubber. It doesn't feel like I'm sharpening on a rock. It feels like I'm sharpening on a really, 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 really hard, very fine, but very hard tire that has some grit in it with no tread. And I kind of like that feel. It's pretty quiet. It's actually very quiet. So this is what the stone looks like right now for load up. Try to do it without the glare from the ceiling light. Load up's very low, but let's give it a quick dunk. A little rub. Let's see where we are. No load up. It doesn't look like any of that load up stayed there. So load up on this is very good. Way to go. Next step is the 1000. Let's give him a quick dunk. Just gonna rub it and try to get some of that powder off of there. This is what my edge looks like off the 400. Not too gritty looking. So this stone is also not absorbing really any water. The water's just staying right on the surface. Nice trail from, I'm just doing some alternating sides to even out my burr and kind of get things even just a little bit. So you can definitely see the stone cutting. This one has a really nice feel. Again, soft. Less gritty than the 400 was, which is appropriate. Definitely cutting. This thing's cutting awesomely. I do this because my strokes are longer on the main part of the knife and I miss the belly. It also helps me wear my stone more evenly actually, so get some of the corners involved in my sharpening a little bit. I have a burr the whole way. These stones feel awesome, actually. Very smooth, quite luxurious feel, actually. So they actually do feel quite a bit like the super stone. The super stones are kind of famous for having a soft and luxurious feel to them, but they cut very slowly and they load up very badly. These have a similar feel to that. They have the pleasurable feel of the super stone, but they seem to be working better. See how the load up is at the end. So far, so good. This stone doesn't feel very gritty. It feels less gritty than it should. But like I said, sometimes all stones, soaking or splash and go, kind of need to be broken in. Many people suggest giving them a good lapping before you get started, which again, I didn't do that. But the thing's obviously working. Burr. Okay, I've got a burr, so I'm just gonna do some alternating strokes to even my burr out so that when I go to my next stone, I don't just have a giant burr to take off. So try to kind of start from even, at least a little bit. Plus, I'm actually enjoying using the stone and I don't want to be done with it yet. These stones are fun, actually. I'm really enjoying this sharpening so far. See if that sensation lasts. Here's what my stone looks like now. Here's what we look like. So, I'm just gonna rub this with my fingers. %90 of that came off with a finger rub. Very, very, very little load up when we're done. So, very, very impressed with the stone so far. This 1000 grit stone was fun. I really enjoyed that. So Here's what my edge looks like off the 1000. Pretty shiny. Moving on to 3000. Let's give him a quick little dunk like I did the others. The water on this one is coming off a little bit. Let's give him a thing and see. I'm just doing this to see how well it stays on the surface. I love when I make a swipe and I can see my little snail trail of swarf. I love that. Weird. But I don't like it to load up. I like it to just come right out when I'm done. Wow, this is very smooth, very grippy and smooth, and quiet. This does not feel like sharpening on a rock at all. It just feels like a I don't know. I can feel some weirdness right here. I think it's from the these feet, these rubber things. Probably make some kind of weird film again. If I had lapped these stones or just gave them a quick once over with a flattening stone, it would help that, but I didn't. I'm just going with them out of the box. But going back to the feel, look at this thing. Look at this thing cutting. You can see, wow, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this. I have to try to zoom in, but you can almost see the individual teeth. You can almost see the striation lines. That's freaking weird. I don't remember ever noticing that on any stone before. I actually could see little tiny little drag lines where the individual micro serrations looked like they were. I'll have to try to capture that again sometime in another video. I kind of enjoy using lighter colored stones because I can see my swarf pattern. But sometimes they load up, and then when they're clean, they still look dirty, which kind of bothers me a little bit. When they're clean, I want them to look clean. I'm really enjoying this stone. This is fun. Like, this is fun sharpening. So again, I'm getting some digging up the stone. I think it's just from the corners. The corners stick up and the stone's never been used. So that's totally common. Just pointing it out. It's just down here. Yeah, I'm getting some dig up here. Just got some there too. That's probably just because I took my angle a little too steeply. It also could be that this part of the stone is not quite flat. But, so, either my angle was off or this just needs to be flattened a little bit. Now I seem to have it dialed in. So you can see these swarf lines are from me. I'm not digging up the stone anymore, so try to keep my angle here as best as I can. That just happened is nothing against the stone. I'm just pointing it out in case you saw it. Or in case you're new, maybe you don't even know that's a thing. So some of it could have been my angle's just slightly too aggressive, steep that way. Some of it could have been the little tiny irregularities in the stone, with the stone being new. And the stone is soft. So if you go in too deep, or you go into, like if you go in too deep or you run your corner or tip like this, you will gouge the stone. I think this stone would be gougeable. So do try to be deliberate with your angle. If you're not great with your angle yet, I suggest you get some budget stones to practice on. Any just generic Amazon stones, those Tanahutu ones that I purchased would be great stones to practice on just to get your angle. To look up my I have quite a few videos on these THLEITE stones. They're not great. They're not the funnest ones to work with, but they do work. And they're great to practice with because they don't cost very much money. But get a cheap knife. Don't practice with a $250 something. Try to find a knife from Walmart, hardware store, something. Whatever the last grit is I'm going to end on, it's very fine, and I'm not going to try to get a burr on that. I'm just going to try to refine my burr as much as possible. So far, these stones are amazing. They feel great. They have a nice, soft feel. Like I said, the most that I can equate them to is the Nanowa Superstones. Nanowa Advanced Superstones, they might be called now. They're very soft. The Nanowa Advanced stones are very soft. They're slow to cut. These are faster to cut than those. Oh, I just really gouged it. So that swipe was just off the tiniest bit. I must have just raised it the tiniest bit. And as you can see, I got some chunk of my stone. So that was my bad. I went in too deep because I'm yammering on like a moron. So I'm gonna give this a quick dunk. I wanna see where we're at. I was just finishing up. The reason I'm doing this dunk now is because I wanna see what my gouge looks like. So this load up is pretty good. This one looks like it's gonna load up a little bit because you get these little scratches in there. It's a really soft stone. And when you're passing your knife over, you'll get tiny, 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 tiny little gouges, and the swarf will kind of embed in there. So with that little dig, I didn't really leave a mark that I can tell. But you can see that of all the stones, this one is loading up the most. But right now I'm totally satisfied with this. I have a process for cleaning my stones when I'm done, which I will show you. It has a very grippy feel. This stone really grabs onto the knife. So that gives you good feedback. You can feel what's going on. You can feel where your angle's at. You can feel where your burr's at. But the stone is soft. If your angle's not on, you will gouge, cut, tear up the stone, or really, this thing, if your angle's not dead on, this stone will be quite gougeable because it's soft. But it works. You can see it. I mean, each stroke is really leaving a swarf line, which indicates that it's cutting my steel. This is 8CR13, by the way. This almost finished. Let me just get my tips a little bit more here. Okay, call that good. My goal is not to make this edge as pretty as possible. My goal is to make this knife sharp and to use these stones. So as we saw before, this thing's gonna load up. I don't think all this is gonna come out just from me rubbing it with my fingers, but I think 60 to 75% of it will come out, which it did, just up here at the corners. This is for my tip. Dragging into there, like I said, it'll leave little tiny microscopic gouges, but this really is rubbing out with my finger. I would say that's 90% with just a dunk and my finger rub. I haven't touched this edge yet with my finger, but I can only imagine this thing is extraordinarily sharp. Normally I would stop here. I would not keep going to 8,000. I'm gonna check it here in a minute. Let me get my stone set up. So we're moving to 8,000. This thing is very shiny. So my edge is just barely toothy. So I would definitely stop on that last stone, but I don't know what this will do, so we'll see. This thing is extremely sharp. Easily shaving arm hair, easily shaving arm hair off that 3000. So my experience is with Amazon basic stones, they never leave a good shaving edge off just the stones. I have to stop them. Just stopping on that 3000 grit left this thing extremely shaving sharp. My burr's not even totally refined because I know I'm going to go to another step. And this thing is easily shaving my arm hair. You can even see some of my arm hair on the stone. That's gross. But you can see it worked. Gross. And we're not done. I like the toothiness. This is just barely toothy. So hopefully this doesn't polish it out too much. I like having some teeth. We'll see. I'm just going to be real careful about this for a minute. Wow. So this stone feels an awful lot like the 3000. It's soft and grippy. It's really grabbing onto my little micro scratches and micro pieces of burr. These are the only stones I've really used where you can actually almost see your serration pattern, your micro serration pattern, leaving a tiny little cut in the stone or a little swarf trail. It's quite amazing. This is where the stone's out for load up. I didn't do very many swipes on this one. I just did edge trailing, very gentle swipes. So the stone, for me, the stone would last a long time because I wouldn't use it very much. I would end on the 3000 grit, but you can see it's really not loading up at all. In fact, none. But again, this stone got by far the least amount of swipes on it. Perfectly clean. So I'm going to use this flattening stone just to see if it works. I have to soak these, so I'm putting it in that water. We'll use it here in a minute. So here's my finished edge. Very shiny. Very shiny. Let's see if I can catch this. It is just shaving like crazy. I'm using as little pressure as possible. Come on, focus. Dude, I used no pressure, none. And look at that, it's just popping hairs off like crazy. This thing is shaving my arm hair like freaking crazy. It is extremely sharp. I don't even know if I want to put this thing on a strop. This is phone book paper. That is incredibly sharp. This is awesome. I'm happy with this thing. I'm not even gonna strop it. I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. Okay, so now we're gonna see where we are with load up. This is a rust eraser, Sabitoru or something like that. These are $7. Perfection recommends these. Just Google Perfection rust eraser and you'll see this. I've used this hundreds and hundreds of times. It is what I use after every sharpening to clean my stones.
For what it's worth, I try to not do any stonework or dump my sharpening water in the sink on the disposal side. I'm not a plumber, but I suspect that the silt and fine particles from your stone breakdown probably are not good for the garbage disposal. So normally I would do this on the other side of this sink, but the lighting is not good over there, so garbage disposal had to take one for the team for the sake of this video. Do you guys have any thoughts on this?
400. This is what it looks like. You do have to use these wet, so I have to do this with running water. I don't think there's any load up on there. I can't see any. So load up for this is perfect. I am gonna run these through a quick flattening, by the way. I'm just doing this to see, I have to check the load up, and this is how I do it. I use this to remove load up, and so that's what I'm doing. What the 1000 looks like. And just with a minor scrubbing, very easy scrubbing. No load up on the 1000. Load up is 0 on that. Here's what the 3000 looks like. Does have some load up. I would say this still, I would say 90% of the load up on this was removed from my finger rub, but there's still some there. So we'll see how this does. This will be a good test for this guy. So you can see we're getting quite a bit of the stone up because this stone's very soft. So this tells me the stone is soft. This is not uncommon for a higher grit stone. My King 6000 does this all the time. But look at this, it takes all that out. Because as you can see, it's actually taken up some of my stone. So that's mostly out. Everything here up is totally out, and here down there's just two little spots. There's one little spot here that didn't get it, and one little spot here. This may be where I actually cut into the stone. I'm not 100% sure. I do believe this 3000 grit stone is very soft. I would flatten this stone very gently because I think you'll use it up if you flatten it too aggressively, but do what you need to do. Where we are with the 8000, there's no load up on it, really. 2% left. Okay, so we're also getting a bunch of stone to come up with this. So this is equally as soft as the 3000 grit. No load up. So these two stones are very, very soft. Be careful when you're sharpening. Keep your angle dead on and flatten these stones very, very occasionally, only when necessary, and very gently, or I believe you will wear these ones out quite fast. So this is my flattener. This thing has been soaking for whatever, 5 minutes. I'm gonna go backwards. I'm gonna do the finest ones first so that I'm getting fine grit into my coarse grit instead of getting coarse grit into my fine grit. I don't know if that's the right way to do it or not, but that's what I'm gonna do. I am gonna flatten these fine grit stones just to make sure they are flat, but I'm gonna be very careful. I like using the flat side on this just because I do, I don't know. Yeah, These stones are very soft. He's done. This is what my flattener looks like. So I'm gonna rinse it again. 3000, again, it has this little thing here and there on this side, on the label side. I can feel a little unevenness on the stone, so I'm gonna use this bumpy side just to make sure. So there is still just the tiniest bit of that load up. I didn't wear that all the way down, but I'm totally happy with this. I'd rather save the life of my stone than worry about a tiny little molecule of load up. 1000, that's what it looks like. There's nothing there. I'm just flattening this. Okay, so this stone did not bring up as much peach colored. This is a harder stone, I think, than those others. That's what it looks like. 400, no load up on him. I'm just flattening him. So he looks like. This thing works like a charm. This stone flattener actually seems quite durable. Okay, I'm just going to give some quick closing thoughts here. The sharpening result of these stones was amazing. This knife is extremely sharp even just off the stones. I believe these stones are accurately graded. I believe these 3000 and 8000 grit stones are very soft and you have to be careful using them. These other stones may still be a little soft enough that you have to be careful, but these are way noticeably softer even than the 400, 1000. So overall grades for these things as a set. Speed on each of these is appropriate. The grit on each of these seems appropriate. The feel on each of these stones was very good. So the feel and feedback on these stones I would say is at least a B to an A, depending on which grit we're on. This stone is not the fastest stone ever, so if your goal is to get things sharpened very quickly, you may need a lower grit than this or something more aggressive. The durability on these stones is a C. While I think these stones just don't immediately wear out right away, I do think they will wear relatively quickly compared to some other stones. And I think specifically the 3000, 8000 you need to be kind of careful with in terms of your angle, your flattening aggression. If you flatten your stones, flatten these very gently and don't flatten them more than necessary because you'll probably wear them out pretty quick. Again, I've only used these once, so this is my guess. Time will tell as I use these more frequently. The value on these stones is an A. They're great. Once you get comfortable with your angle and you feel like you know what you're doing, I would buy these. I would buy these for $60. I would get them. They're amazing. They're fun. It's way cheaper to get these than it is to start getting other sets of fancier stones. And you can still buy the other stones later on once you figure out what you're doing. If you buy this set, it makes it so you don't need to buy a stone holder. It makes it so you don't need to buy a stone flattener. If you buy this set, you may be able to get by without having a strop. This set of stones, even off the 3000, left an extremely sharp edge on this knife. And I am going to guess that if you have these stones, you probably don't need a strop. So, getting started, diamond stone, knife to practice with, cheap knives, you can get them at Walmart, whatever. A basic set of stones to practice with, entry-level stones or a hardware stone, and get these, and you'll be good to go. If you already have some freehand experience, because maybe you've already been using diamonds as part of your thing, so you're freehanding with diamonds already, you already know how to hold your angle, then you don't need practice stones. You don't need any stones to practice with. If you already know what you're doing, you could get these. and use them and get perfectly amazing results. These are truly splash and go stones, which makes them very convenient. It makes them more convenient than soaking stones. These things work as splash and go stones. That's awesome. So THLEITE, I don't know how to say that, whoever you are, way to go. I like these stones, I'm happy with them. I'm gonna use them more. I'm gonna do more reviews on them. Very, very highly recommended. That's all I got for you guys. As always, thanks for watching.